Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast Live. My name is John, and we're trying a whole new setup and system here tonight. So bear with us. But we're going to be talking about the Fallout TV show from Amazon. So we're going to get into it pretty quickly. Our first guest here is Mike. So let's see. Let's add him. There we are. How's it going, Mike?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
What's going on, John?
And here Tony appears as well. So we'll pop Tony in here too.
A mythical Tony appears.
It's a shiny.
I'm all out of Master Balls.
Oh, shoot. He's going to get away.
Dang it.
So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
You're just fine.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I wanted to do this thing where, so if anyone's familiar, we normally have a regular podcast on the Rocks podcast, and that goes to podcast directories and stuff like that. It's become like every other week rotating with our anime podcast, which is great. But sometimes when I do like more specific conversations throughout the time, sometimes we have, something that comes up. Some people watch it, some people haven't. And then by the time we get around to it, it's pretty late on. So these are designed to be a new thing that's just going to be more topic focused, and it's a live stream. It will live on Twitch and wherever things are live streamed to only. It's not going to become part of the podcast or something like that. So that's
I can't believe we haven't gotten in trouble with live streams yet.
Well, how do you mean?
Saying dumb shit, man.
It's on my mind every time I get on this podcast.
You get a comment once in a while, but and right now when there's so few people that watch, it's like each individual comment stings more. But then I'm like, if anyone ever watched more and more people watch this, you're gonna have to deal with like shit talkers and horrible feedback constantly. So just gotta. There was one just recently. I just it's not worth replying to. It's like, I don't know what you want me to say to that. So yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't be too worried about it. I wouldn't be too worried about it.
They're trying to get to you. Maybe species that evolve through the filter of what you consider comfortable are less evolved than the species that just communicate.
Wow.
Well, okay. On that note,
let's talk about dystopian futures.
Yeah, maybe we'll get philosophical here tonight. I don't know. Yeah, everybody do bear with me. I'm trying new software, so let me know how it goes. And then we're live on X and Kick and Twitch and YouTube. So any of those places. It can be any of those places.
Shout out to the YouTube bros.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see what happens when I do this. Yeah, we are. Fallout. So
I love that artwork.
What do you guys, we'll start, Mike, you were here first. What is your familiarity with the world of Fallout?
For some reason, it feels like I know the world, but then I was trying to go back and think about how many of the games I've played, and I first of all didn't realize how long ago it had been. But so thanks for that. But yeah, it was Fallout 3, I think, was like the first one that I spent a lot of time in. I believe I'd played Fallout 2. But Fallout 3 was the first one I spent a lot of time with. Fallout 4 as well. Once they were getting into like New Vegas and 76 and things like that, I had moved on by that point. So that was my degree of familiarity. Kind of the same thing that everybody, knows about, right? Where it's just your typical, everybody knows about the death clause. Everybody knows about the bottle caps, right? The VAT system, things of that nature. And like the Brotherhood of Steel, like, not that we're going deep into what the show is yet, but I felt like, they hit on those low hanging fruit and that low-hanging fruit is about all I really remember. So
Okay. How about you, Tony?
Yeah, very similar to Mike. Why I called you Mark all of a sudden. Very similar to Mike. I really got into Fallout around Fallout 3, because I believe that came out when I was a sophomore in college, and so I played so much Fallout 3, so much Fallout 3. Um, I did play some of New Vegas. I did not get into New Vegas as much as I got into 3. Um, the worlds were very different in the sense that New Vegas, felt more flushed out in terms of mechanics, but I think the world was better in 3. Fallout 4, I played very little of Fallout 4. In fact, I'm actually going through Fallout 4 right now, like actively going through it, because by the time Fallout 4 had come out, I kind of moved on from that, like Mike said, like kind of that um, genre or that kind of area of gaming. And I didn't play any of 76. I just kind of ate the drama up around it, like watching just how horrible that launch was. You got to be there. Like I was there to watch the Hindenburg crash and burn. Like that is what 76 was. But I never played it. But then I recently tried 76, and I will shout out to Bethesda. They did turn that game around, so it is actually pretty interesting now. It's very flushed out. It feels more complete. So I'm having a little bit of fun with that. But yeah, so I got really into the lore and a lot of the background around Fallout. And without giving too much away, I thought this series really did a good job of getting, like Mike said, getting that low hanging fruit, but then riding the line of keeping it very true to the aesthetics and the feel and the tone of the games without having to tell any of the stories that already existed. Like this is a brand new story. This is touching on different areas of the world, but it wasn't like, oh, I don't have to watch this because I've played the game, so I already know the story. It's like, nope, they did a phenomenal job that way.
Cool. Do you concur with that, Mike?
Yeah. Pretty much wholeheartedly. I think that is one of the best parts of this show is that it was fan service, without it being like super intrusive fan service,
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the way that they implemented the stim pack without, they call it a stim pack, but they don't like blatantly come out and say like this will heal all, like. So the interesting part about that, I think, is if you're not familiar with the games, that might seem a little bit annoying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like depending on how you're approaching this show, you're like, okay, so she gets stabbed through the abdomen and she just puts a shot in her and then she's fine and all she has to do is staple it up. And it's like, yeah, because that's the hilarious, like the hilarity of this. Like it's not bad writing like you would typically think it is.
It's not
right?
Star Wars where you get
Right.
stabbed by a lightsaber and then everybody lives except Qui-Gon Jinn.
Right, exactly. Because this is the lore of it. So that's, to me, that's the beauty of this stuff. So I'm all on board for that kind of thing. And there's other elements in there too. Like there's little hints about the VAT system. The ghoul kind of implements some of that here and there. And I just think it's slick. And that's carried out even in like the comedy of the show as well. And a lot of the writing, I've seen people online say that it's like stupid writing and how many times are you going to, give it a pass, give stupid writing a pass. But it's, to me, it's like it's right in line with the character of the games. So I will give it a pass all day long because they're doing it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to. There's two things there I want to touch on more. Like you brought up, maybe if someone's that's completely unfamiliar, maybe some of these things would be annoying. So, firstly, did either of your spouses watch the show, maybe not know what Fallout is, and then have their different thoughts? Did those things impact them? And then secondly, after that, I do want to get to the idea of the some people calling out poor writing, bad writing, and see more what you've found for examples on that. If there are instances other than like a stim pack working. So, Tony, we'll start with you. Your spouse, thoughts? Did she watch it along with you at all, or?
She watched it after me, so she caught the tail end of it, and then we went back and rewatched the whole thing because I was very excited to rewatch it again. So sorry, checking on Bailey here. And so when we went back and rewatched it, she had like limited knowledge of Fallout. You know, like she had, I think she had played a little bit of 3, but she liked the show for what it was. You know, she thought it was just a really fun watch, which I think if you don't get the Fallout universe, like Fallout is very tongue in cheek, and it tends to err on let's take the absurdity of certain situations and bring that to the extreme, where you get a little bit of that dark humor and the idea behind where some of the stuff comes from. And so some of this stuff, like the dog thing, to circle back with Mike, spoiler alert, I think it happens in the second episode. Uh, the dog gets stabbed. The ghoul stabs the dog, and so she's like pissed. She actually was like, "Well, I'm not going to watch the show if the dog dies." And I didn't want to tell her and be like, "You can't kill dog meat. Like he will never die." And so he comes back with the stim pack and like hits him, and he gets up right away. And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's literally straight out of the game. Like, in the game, you cannot kill dog meat." So, like,
Well, and so like that's, you could look at this on other games that aren't, say, tongue in cheek, that aren't don't sort of have, I don't know, like this quirky sense of humor, or like a self-awareness or something. And look, well, see, in our game also, that's quite a bit more serious. Are your NPCs that are following you never die, or as soon as if they die, once the battle's over, they pop back up. So you could see someone being angry that if they made an adaptation of that game and then they implemented that, it's like, well, that's just because it's a video gamey thing. That's not. So if you're converting this into a show, don't add the unrealistic video gamey thing, because now it breaks the sense of reality. Let's just put in the game because it's a game. And so I can see people attacking this, looking at it that way.
Right. And I think that's where you have to level set on the suspension of disbelief. When you're making a show like this, how analogous to the source material do you want to be? Because you could make a Fallout show that was very realistic, that was set in with the rules of our physical universe, and you could do it. Be very dark. It'd be a very dark show. But the way that this is written is they're basically saying the universe in and of itself of Fallout is very not serious. Like it doesn't take itself seriously. It has a whole bunch of, I guess, philosophical arguments within its lore and within its character developments within the games. But if you're going to bring that into the show, you have to, and you want to be analogous to that game, you have to write it like that. You have to make it goofy in a way that there's a suspension of disbelief and stuff like that. And that's why when you look at it, do I give it a pass or not? It's not bad writing if the writing is reaching the intended audience the way that it's meant to be seen. Bad writing is if they decided that, I'm trying to think of an example that you could do here for this type of show. Mike, why don't you go? I'm going to think of like an example of what I can put up
Yeah.
here.
So so your significant other, what'd she think of it, and if she watched it, and then yeah, do you the tone? Do you buy that, or you see someone being upset at it, or?
I do. I see someone being upset at it. Let's start with Rachel. I got Rachel to watch the first episode, and she's never played any of the games. She's not a gamer by any means whatsoever. And she got done with it the first episode. And she looked at me. She's like, "What the hell did I just watch?" Because I didn't want to be sitting there like explaining everything the whole time, because that ruins it, right? And I just
Sure.
wanted to see her genuine reaction to things. And yeah, she was just utter confusion. And I'm sitting there going, "No, I totally get that." But also, I was like, "But you never picked up your phone during that whole time." Like, she was engrossed in it. And so, there's got to be something good about that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's perfect. And here's the thing: it might not attract new viewers, but I'm okay with that, because I'm tired of this thing where we have to attract a new audience, all the time. For some reason, for some undescribed reason, we need this new audience that like just isn't familiar, and so you have to make it approachable for all these people. No, like, I'm really glad they didn't do that with this. Really, really glad. Because you already have such a massive following. And like, are we just supposed to assume that people that play video games don't also watch TV and don't also want to see this? No way. That's silly. You have that big following, roll with it. And it seems like they really did. So I like that a lot. And I think the show is better for it. Now, on the flip side, right? Like bad writing examples and how this doesn't make sense. And can you just explain it away? Right. We're going full spoilers here, right? So it's okay if I jump towards the end.
It's in the title.
So, yep. All right. So the ghoul at the end with the Brotherhood, right? When he's battling the Brotherhood, at the end of that, he's just picking them off left, right, and center. But at the beginning of the show, he was struggling. Well, not struggling, but he was fighting Maximus and couldn't, seem to close the deal on him, or not nearly as easily. And he has the bandolier, right, with all of his ammo. There are ways to explain that and understand why that would be. I mean, there's a litany of ones. You could say, because the show does a really good job of like making this feel almost like a progression of each character being played through the games, right? Like, you can see yourself as the Vault Dweller, as Lucy, as you're, going out there and exploring it for the first time. You can see yourself as this person. Like, when I got the power armor, didn't give two shits about the Brotherhood of Armor or the Brotherhood of Steel. Didn't care about them. Think they're jerks. I just want the armor. That's Maximus. Right. And like, the ghoul is, the bounty hunter-esque type. He's the only one that I don't really feel like fits into that, but there's like a progression for each of them through their, quest. And he even calls out like the side quests. It's a great call out to the game, right? The golden rule of the Wasteland is that shall always be sidetracked by bullshit. Like,
Yeah, that's good.
Fantastic. That's not bad writing. That's an homage to what the game is all about and the memes about the game. And so when he's in that battle, he was low on ammo, perhaps. Maybe he didn't think Maximus was a threat, whatever you want to say about it. Because he's known how to use power armor, right? Maybe he just didn't want to kill him, but then suddenly he's now using the armor piercing rounds. So why didn't he before? Like, there's elements of it like that. Maybe it's plot armor, but I think it's actually just feels more how the video game plays out. When you are first introduced to a character, you're not taking them all out with the VAT system. But damn it, by the end of that campaign, man, you are a gunslinger just like him. He's using the VAT system. It's sick.
Cool. All right. Agree, Tony?
Mm-hmm. I really like what you said about each character kind of having its own development, because that is one thing I really think they did a phenomenal job in. And you see it, I think you see it the most in Lucy and in Maximus. I think the Ghoul's overarching arc is going to come later, because you do see, you get why he is the way he is, but like, you don't get the sense that he wants to change. There's something else that he's up to that he wants to do.
Mhm.
But Lucy, it's so the actress even did a phenomenal job at the end when she's confronted with who her father really is, like that immediate switch, because she finally realizes what the Ghoul's been talking about the whole time is the wasteland doesn't have rules. The wasteland is just going to test your morality to see how far it can push you before you really see the world for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like her arc. And it's so funny to see, like, through this entire series, all she wants to do is be a good Samaritan and like help people and be kind. And if you're kind, other people will be kind to you. And every single time people are like, fuck you. Like,
Like the bridge crossing scene, I thought was great.
Yes.
the
I
bridge
really like
crossing
that.
scene was so
It's like,
quintessential.
and won't trust Maximus. It's like, we're gonna do this peaceably here, and of course, you know, what would you be doing out there unarmed? You know, it's
Mhm.
great.
And it's funny because Maximus is seen as he only thinks of himself, you know, and that's why,
Right.
because he
Yeah.
it's all about what he wanted to join the Brotherhood of Steel because he wanted to be a knight, not to represent what the knights did. He just wanted
Right.
to be one.
Mhm.
And you know, like even when she's like, well, you have to give, you know, they had stolen, I think in like episode 7 or something, they stole the fusion core from Vault 4, and she's like, you have to give it back. He's like, but why? I need it for my power armor. She's like, because it's not yours. And he's like, but I need it.
Yeah. She was so easily set up to be a Mary Sue. And
Yeah.
like of all the shows, I almost feel like the writers did that 100% intentional, like as a mockery to all the other Mary Sues that have been written recently. You know, I don't see the I don't know, lack of a better term. I don't see the wokeism or anything like it up in this show. I just don't see it. I think that it's actually, you know, it's turned on its head a little bit. She's a Mary Sue. She's good at literally everything. She's so humble that when she is in the very opening scene, when she's firing her rifle, she's saying she's not a very good marksman, right? But she's drilling dead center with an automatic, you know, like side belt or side fed machine gun. It was like, it was funny. Like it's so absurd, right? That it's
Mhm.
funny. And instead of making her actually play out as a Mary Sue, even though she has all those capabilities, which is funny too, because in the games you walk out of a vault and you are able to do all of this crazy shit, right? They give it a little explanation, but she still struggles. She doesn't just simply solve everything. Things work out, right? You wouldn't have much of a story if they didn't. But she's not doing it without struggle. Like, so I like that. And yeah, she is having her whole world view shattered in front of her, and she handles it pretty well. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I, there's not a whole lot of resistance to like learning that everything you've been taught your entire life. You know, she gets
Is a
sad.
lie.
Yeah, she gets sad, but then she's like, Oakley dokley or whatever it is.
Oakley dokley. What
Um,
I
yeah.
love about that, Mike, is that you talk about that. Yeah, they do. They set her up at the beginning where she's like, "Oh, I excel at history of the world, and I excel at marksmanship, and I excel at like strength training and pipe fitting, and like all this other stuff." And they really draw that out because in the vault, right, it's this contained world where, yeah, she's perfect in this contained world because it's a non-believable perfect world that is absurd because no one can live like that. And so she's like, I'm the best, whatever, and I want to be all this stuff. Then when she gets out into the wasteland, if you notice through the show, none of those carry over really. Like none of those skills carry over to the wasteland until the very
Yes.
end when she just like starts drilling people with the gun. And it's just like that I think to your point, like it's really funny to think about the writers being like, yeah, we're gonna set her up to be awesome, and then they're like, psych, welcome to the real world where like nothing you learned is actually gonna work.
Yes, absolutely. I think, I
Well,
mean, it's funny how she knows how power armor works. She, when she's saving Maximus, she just one shots all of the bugs from like any angle. Plus, she obviously has fast travel, right? She just shows up in front of him. Like, oh, there's just great shit.
yeah, I think two things on that. One, you said the like wokeism seems not there, and I agree. My like sensitivity for that is pretty high these days, I'd say, and I didn't have anything that bothered me. And then the Mary Sue element, Tony, why don't you explain, like your comparison here to one of the bigger modern day Mary Sues that this show like seems like they've taken the premise and just done better.
Oh yeah, the meme I sent you. Yeah, where you look at Lucy and Maximus's comparison to Rey and Finn from Star Wars, and it's like the exact same characters, but they're just written way better. Yeah, it's shocking when you watch this show and you kind of think back to that comparison of Finn and Rey. Now, I think Finn and Rey were set up in The Force Awakens to be really cool characters. I think they had an arc going for them that would have been really cool, and then for some reason they're just like, never mind, psych.
Yeah.
Finn's a douchebag, and no one likes Finn. He's a jerk and a jokester. It's like, no, Finn was supposed to be awesome. Whereas this one, you create this character where, um, the only way I can think about it is in the game. In the game, you can choose to be a male or a female, right, or whatever you want in the game, and it
Yeah.
doesn't change the progression of the story. Right, the story still makes sense. Good writing will lend itself to the character being, if you can see yourself in that character or see yourself going through those same kind of struggles, whether it's a guy or a girl or whatever, because there's a portion of that character that you connect with. There's the drive to succeed, the drive to be a good Samaritan in Lucy's case, the drive to want to help people despite all this immorality that she's facing, that she still wants to be the good person. She still thinks there's good in everybody, and you connect with that. Bad writing is when you take that same type of character, but you can't connect with your audience. And I think that was the later problems that Rey had, is that you just couldn't connect with Rey because she was good at everything. There was never a struggle. The only thing she struggled with was that she didn't have a family. And it's like, is that really your only defining characteristic, is that you don't have a family and that's going to be your like huge issue? And I think that's the problem when you have a Mary Sue character like that, is if you're good at everything, the story is going to suck because your character can never overcome an obstacle, can never grow, can never have that arc to make them a better person. Lucy had an arc, 7 episodes. She had an arc, and it was phenomenal. And I connected with Lucy. Like I was really driven by Lucy's story. I'm like, I'm in. I like totally want to see where she goes, what she does. I want to see how far the wasteland is going to push her before she just decides to like snap.
And they took a hot actress and didn't make her ugly on purpose. That's a benefit. That's like normally you'd take someone that's like, oh, this is a very pretty woman, and you just try to make her look but ugly for the show. But no, Lucy's hot, so
I never noticed.
She has like normal hair, It's not like shaved on one side and dyed green.
That's true.
I don't know. Some girls can pull off a shave on one side though.
she's attractive, but there's something off-putting. And I don't mean that
Oh,
as an
really?
insult. Her
Oh.
eyes are so big.
Yeah,
They're
they're like anime
so
eyes.
big. They
I
are.
like them.
I'm not saying she's not beautiful. Like she is, but I'm like split down the middle because
She's
she
watching this right
does
now and
look like a
crying.
video game. I know. And she's like, God damn, Mike's comments about me have shattered
Yeah.
my self-worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just I do agree. They've made her feel believable in an unbelievable weird setting while not eliminating like the magic of what is the Fallout universe and having it be silly. I mean, there's so many good things to say about this show.
Yeah, I think I think I was really impressed. My knowledge of Fallout is lesser than yours. It's actually my wife that's like played a ton of the Fallout games and spent a lot of hours in them. So a lot of my knowledge is honestly just through watching her play and stuff like that. So that's I've experienced much of it, and then some Fallout 76. But otherwise, what impressed me, besides like having the fun little things that I would see, like they I guess we're asking for computer models of items so they can specifically 3D print what they used in the game.
Oh,
Awesome.
cool.
I
That's really
also
cool.
I am always saying that when you do adaptations of things, when you move from one medium to another, my preferred method is absolutely to expand rather than replicate. And so early on, they were talking like we were treating this as a sequel to Fallout 4. This is a Fallout 5. This is like if we were making another game, but we're doing it in this. So it's not like Last of Us, which a lot of people loved. Well done show. It's a version of a retelling of the game. I would have much rather had the show be something else, just be a different story in that world. There are examples of this. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is not a retelling of the Cyberpunk 2077 game. It is another story in that world, perfectly done. And it creates this great feedback thing where yes, a person that might play games might watch Last of Us and then go back and play the Last of Us game if they haven't. But they might also say, well, it's that. I don't need to play it because I just watched it. But if you have this new thing, like in this case, and we saw that definitely in the numbers, Fallout players were coming back in droves. People were streaming all over the place. Sales were way up, all this sort of thing. It created sales, in the other medium. And so I think it did a really good job of that kind of symbiotic thing that it should do. And then watching it, I was really surprised at not just like the connections, but how interesting the story really was. Like it kept kind of getting deeper. The plot would thicken, so to say. Like what's really going on in these vaults? Like that little thread that they kept using, they spaced that well. They really kept me wondering for a long time what's going on here, and it was always another layer. So you just get a feeling what's wrong, and then it's the way that she's treated when Lucy gets out, but then it's when in doubt, elect 31 or whatever, vote 31. That stuff. And then the massacre and the other. That's all very good, and just it kept me guessing for a long time. And then the ghoul, his backstory was also, they didn't have to do that with the ghoul. They could have had the ghoul is a kind of Clint Eastwood. He is the man with no name. He's that kind of guy that shows you the way it really is out here, all that sort of thing. But they added a deep storyline that, again, I also didn't see coming or know where it was going. When he was like an actor, and then he's, who would have seen it coming that like what his wife was up to, and the way that her attitude was, and the way they had them argue, and then him to debate with like spying on her, and like the whole that was all far more than I expected this show to deliver in terms of real interesting story. So it was more than just like, this is fun, it's silly, it's self-aware, sort of moments. Like, they had that depth, the conversations about, like, meaning and corporatism and government and the roles of those things. This
Mhm.
is why the Westworld people, when they're not infected with a certain political virus, can have a really good, like, grasp on creating philosophical conversations without jamming anything down your throat. Like, it really had characters with varying opinions and created discussions that I'd wanted to talk about afterwards. So I was very impressed with the writing, and I just don't really understand their critiques, because it was more than I expected, vastly more.
I really liked their tie-in to Vault-Tec, because at the beginning, like it's even at the beginning of the games, like you don't really think of Vault-Tec. You're like, oh, they created the vaults, like they were
Yep.
heroes. You think of them as kind of like a neutral force, right? And I love how this game, or this show kind of played that out, where they're like, yeah, Vault-Tec, they're creating these vaults, they're there to help us. And then by the end of the show, you're like, oh, they were actually the bad guys the whole time. And like when I got that, my dad, who watched the show too, he goes, oh, so they were bad guys. I was like, yes, everybody who plays Fallout knows that Vault-Tec are not good people.
Well, and that's the resounding theme, right? Is neither are the Brotherhood of Steel, neither is the Enclave. There aren't good people. Now they
There's
tried
good
to
people. There's not good group.
organizations.
Yeah.
It's all different thoughts of governing people and governing
Yes.
large groups, and that they have that with, yeah, like you said, there's the Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel,
Government
there's
bad, okay?
first responders, there's the railroaders, um, New California Republic, and then whatever New Vegas is, I guess or then like in New Vegas they have like the Legion, I think is one. I can't remember the name of the Crimson Legion or the Legion. Um,
So is the New California Republic, I mean, they're painted obviously in this way to be the closest to good guys, right? Is that the way it is in the games? And of course it's muddy, right? There's always muddy. I
mhm.
get that, but they're as close to idealists as you can get.
There's a faction, I don't remember which one, Ashley always picks. She's like, to me, these are the live and let live people. Then
It's
there's
the
only one.
Railroaders.
Think
She
so?
picks
That's
the
what it is?
Railroaders, I think, out of Fallout
Okay.
4. And then for the New California Republic, yeah, I remember when I played New Vegas, and I remember I didn't play a lot of New Vegas, so I'm not really up to snuff on the intricacies of like the New California Republic versus the Brotherhood of Steel versus the Enclave, and then they have the Legion in there. But they seem the least radical
Okay.
of all of them, in my mind. Um, uh, it is interesting though that the Fallout fandom is kind of if you like Fallout, you like Fallout. That's kind of how I view it. It doesn't matter which game you like, but there's a subset of fans that are divided among,
There's a
are you a
split.
Fallout 3 or a New Vegas fan? Because they're both.
Oh, really? I don't see. No, I don't see. That's not
Yeah.
the way I've ever seen that.
Are
I've
you a
seen it
Fallout 3
as
or are you a
like
New Vegas fan?
4 is the outlier. I've seen so many people that are saying, like, if you like 4, you're not a real Fallout fan. 4 is the
Really?
blasphemous one. Yeah.
Well, it comes down to because New Vegas wasn't made by Bethesda. New Vegas was
Right.
made by Obsidian.
Mhm.
And the RPG element, the storytelling in New Vegas is light years ahead of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4.
Sure.
And so people think that New Vegas is the better game. But then there's people like, no, Fallout 3 is the better game. Because those two came out roughly around the same time period. Fallout 4 didn't come out until, what, like 2013,
Boy,
14?
what was that?
15?
Yeah, I suppose something like that.
God, I hate that. So long ago.
Yeah, New Vegas and Fallout came out really, really close together because they're built in the same Like they use the same assets essentially.
2015 Fallout 4.
Yeah, so I thought.
So,
But anyway, so the reason I
okay,
brought that
yeah.
up is because the fact that they have New Vegas now, they showed New Vegas in the final scene, right?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's just the skyline. So it's not
That
really spoiling
looks
anything.
okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't certain because it looked like a Seattle skyline, but it was nowhere near the water. And to me, it would make sense that if you're in California and you're moving north, you're gonna end up in that Seattle. I thought I saw the Space Needle.
Mm-mm. That's
No?
the that's one of the casinos that house
Okay.
house one. So the lore behind this, and this is now that I'm gonna get flamed in the comments. I can already tell because they're like, well, actually,
I can't
guys, this is
wait.
gonna be really high level. Um, the house, the guy who made Robco,
Mhm.
he didn't really buy into Vault Tech. He didn't really think it was that big of a deal. He hedged his
Which they
bets.
talk about in the show.
Mhm.
He provides resistance in their little conference. So sorry, continue.
Oh no, and that's perfect. Yeah, he provides a little resistance. He doesn't buy into it because he had already hedged his bets on Vegas, and so he had wanted to uh, create his own city built on top of the vault in Las Vegas, and that's what New Vegas came from. And so that's why I looked over at Nicole and I said, "Well, you know what the theme is for next season?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "The house always wins."
Ah,
um, but yeah, so I liked that, right? So, but the fact that they bring in New Vegas in, there's a little bit of issues with that because I believe in New Vegas you actually blow up Shady Sands, or you can choose not to. So they've already written that Shady Sands has been blown up. So they that is a retcon that they did, and it doesn't seem to be bothering anybody. But
You took away
now,
player's choice.
right? But now people are kind of looking over at Todd Howard and being like, "Hey, so you're actually acknowledging that New Vegas is canon now because you're bringing this stuff into it." But there's like some freedom there.
gotcha.
So are there any specific elements of the show in terms of story or character that we want to discuss yet? Like, just like some philosophical ones, if you were in a vault, you were in charge of it, would you bring in people from the outside? How would you handle that? The way that they handled it, initially here, we don't know what to do with them. Let's just put them in, lock them in a place and keep feeding them. Like, what do you do? What do you do for managing that?
Man, you're just going heavy right
I
off the bat.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of different heavy things we can get into. I wish you guys have watched it more than once, so you probably have a better idea of some of the topics you can get into there. But
Dude, I thought we were just talking about the show. I didn't know we were gonna get philosophical on this. Damn.
no, that's why I like this. That's why this show went above and beyond, because it wasn't just cool.
Mhm.
It actually was smart.
I don't
So
know.
you're asking us what we would do in clarify
Would you
which position.
So would you take in outsiders if you were the head of a vault? Would you take in people from the outside, try to like help them become part of your vault? And the second scenario would be if you are raided, what do you do with those people? Would you ever do a situation like we got here where you lock them up and feed them, and then some maybe attempts to reform?
Can I just sit in a control vault?
You
Not
just
have
let's
to deal
sit.
with anything.
Pretty boring.
No. At the risk of coming off like the Cyclops guy in the show and how they painted him as such a caricature of a Republican, which was hilarious. Like I don't need to get political in this, but no, I would not bring in outsiders if I was operating a vault. I can't remember if that was supposed to be the specific experiment of Vault 4 was no, because they were doing actual experiments. So I don't know why they did that. I guess I would not, because that hinders the entire process. Even if you have the technology to, what is the correct word? I'm ignorant here. Deradiate.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
These folks, even if you can do that, you don't know what kind of culture you're going to be bringing in, but you have to assume that you're talking about people who have had to do whatever they have needed to in order to survive. There are not going to be soft people out there 219 years after all of this has gone down. The soft people are dead, right? That's how I see it.
You're supposed to go out there and, rebuild America and teach everybody the ways that, things were done. Why not start here? If you
That was
can't
not the
manage
plan.
these people here.
That was the plan
That
of
was
2
that was
vaults.
not the plan. Yeah. The plan was
Actually, that
let
was the plan of 1
everybody
vault.
out there die and let's expedite that process. Right.
Right.
That was the
Okay.
plan.
So sure.
So
I mean,
that's
now
why I
you
say
sell
bringing them
your
in is
citizenry.
counterproductive.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't bring them in. The other thing they don't. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead. I've talked enough.
The other thing that they don't really get into, I think, is because Fallout doesn't even acknowledge this either. If you had a sealed environment that ran on recycled air and water purification systems that housed, let's say, 100 people, right? 100 individuals for 200 years. You have basically a contained ecosystem of not only people, but of bacteria and viruses, because the people in that vault over 200 years would basically build up an immunity around whatever's in there. The instant you open that vault door and shit gets in there that's not purified, that people come in there, the disease and the bacteria and the viruses would run rampant, and that would kill you more likely than anything on the outside physically would, if you chose not to go. The instant that 33 opened up and she walked out, she basically just killed everybody anyway. So,
okay, but now you're getting too realistic. Now you're eliminating the possibility for the philosophical conversation.
I'm sorry, is that bad writing?
Yeah. Hey, you're getting way too realistic. The Cyclops shouldn't be letting people in, Tony. Okay? The Cyclops that is having a woman give birth to piranhas that then eat her, they'll survive anything. Let's be real about this.
That's real. All right. By the way, that whole thing, that's the entire plot of War of the Worlds. We win in War of the Worlds because aliens leave their ship and then die from bacteria.
So what is, speaking on that, like, I was a little confused there with the experimental vault. Like, wasn't there some explanation? It wasn't like we weren't doing that. What was that? There was who was actually doing the experiments? Wasn't it something like it had been done and we're attempting to?
Are you talking about Vault 4 in the show?
Yeah.
So Vault 4, the experiment in Vault 4 was, can you have a society that is governed and run specifically by scientists? And so these scientists basically just started experimenting on the inhabitants of the vault, and the inhabitants of the vault eventually
took over.
Yeah, and they killed all the scientists, and then they left over and they opened the vault and let people in who were from the outside, who were strangers or estranged people that needed a place to call home, because they felt that they were able to create that utopia in Vault 4 once they got rid of the scientists.
But ironically, and hilariously, right, one of the things that I'm talking about is they they brought those folks in. They approved of their, cultish like behavior, and they still just wanted to, those people were still worshiping,
Moldova.
thank you, Moldova. I mean, it's a hilarious allegory for what is happening, or what happens with the United States. It's funny because it's funny in a non-serious way. The entire show is non-serious, right? Intentionally. But even though they've been brought in, even though they're supposed to be readapting, they're still talking about getting back out there and rebuilding Shady Sands effectively, or whatever, because that's what Moldova built, right? And so then you have them doing that, and then you've got the Cyclops guy who's just an asshole, right? And I don't
I don't know. He's kind of funny.
He's hilarious.
Chris Parnell crushed that role. He's funny.
Hilarious, but he's intended. You're supposed to think like this is an asshole. He says one thing, does one thing, thinks a total different. Normally, you'd call that type of person an asshole.
He's trying to keep the place together. He's like, we can talk frankly, but look, we got to keep this ship on course. So
exactly.
Okay, so wouldn't let people in. All be kill the viruses. Don't try to reform. What about so nuclear apocalypse is upon us, and people seem pretty convinced apparently that it's going to happen. Wishful almost. What would you say to the idea of a conglomerate of corporations attempting this type of rescue? We're like apparently beyond negotiation. Peace can't be a thing. We're all going to get blasted to hell. Is this a viable solution for the human race?
No. And that's the whole point of Fallout. It never was a viable solution. They didn't want it to be a viable solution. It's
corporate greed run amok
corporate greed
to the highest degree.
Yeah. It is a very macabre look at how dark can a corporation go when they're like, yeah, we're going to build vaults for an oncoming nuclear war. Oh, the nuclear war is not going to happen. We need to fund these vaults. Let's get a bunch of other corporations together to buy vaults, do experiments on people, and then we'll just launch the nukes ourselves. Like, you're creating demand for your supply.
Right. There's so many crossovers to this. I mean, if you stay with social media, this is what the world supposedly thinks of the United States as is, right? So it's a bit on the nose. We are not run by government. We're run by the corporations that run the government. And this is just that it manifest, right? And so, yeah, not viable. If this experiment was done by, I'm not sure I can think of the type of person that it would need to be run by for it to be proper, because, right, this is kind of like the Thanos concept. And so do you agree that, Thanos's idea of wiping out half of the population of the universe would be a sustainable solution? Because that's essentially what they are proposing here. They're doing it for an even more evil reason, but they're saying, let's wipe everything out and we'll rebuild anew. Right.
Well, the issue with both those things is defining the problem. You're trying to solve something that we need to agree on first is a problem. So Thanos is, we're going to snap away half the universe. Why do you need to snap away half the universe? I think there's some tenuous things like, oh, this place, they don't have enough food, yada, yada. Okay, so the universe this planet has having food problems, therefore the entire universe gets halved. Maybe the incredible technology that what a spacefaring being would have, that I don't know, some other place could just synthesize food. Maybe there would be other solutions to providing food to a planet that is struggling with it than erasing half. So like the whole premise is ridiculous because we're not agreeing on the problem. In this show, what's our problem? Our problem, our problem is we're going to have nuclear war, I guess. And so how do we fix that? Well, having the population or like letting it all wash away and starting anew. I guess that's just by people that they take the opportunity to seize the power and we can rebuild with our own image, our own ideology. So to me, it's either, I don't know, did Thanos have that idea? I guess that it was like, I'm going to rebuild or it's just, I'm going to snap it in half and therefore let it flourish from there.
No, I don't think they are perfectly symmetrical problems. I was trying to draw similarities in their solution with a particular outcome, right? So like Thanos's whole situation, right? Yes, there are a whole bunch of alternative solutions that could have come from that. But you could say the same thing pretty much in all cases. Like with the Fallout situation, there's a ton of potential solutions around nuclear war. Now, whether or not you agree that they are viable, that's not for this show to discuss or us even.
Right.
Really, right? We're supposedly past that point, but it is at the core of it. Both of the supposed problems was that that there was going to be something wiping out half of the population. It was Thanos snapping, and I'm talking about this from the Marvel the Marvel hero perspective. They don't agree that things need to be wiped out, but that is the oncoming
threat.
Mm-hmm. And same with this one, right? There is going to be nuclear war. Everybody is going to be wiped out. And so we've got to build these shelters. And then to Tony's point, that problem changes when the world is talking of peace treaties, right? What I think is interesting, like about that whole thing, is Vault-Tec, they show the truly evil side of things because they're not just like, well, things are going to be peaceful, we can set off bombs here and there, right? And wipe it out. It's just, let's just nuke the US. That's all we're caring about. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if this is supposedly happening on different continents, but it's just, it highlights just how desperately evil to a weird character degree the corporations are supposed to be. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm going off.
No, I mean, it's just the feasibility of that
game.
It's not feasible. That it's not. It never was. It's never supposed to be. I mean,
well, the feasibility of like a cabal of corporations all being evil enough that we're going to, set upon the destruction of America for the hope that we can then have the best system of vault experiments and come out winning when we come back out, we emerge from the vault. To me, the way I see this looking is like you'd have a whole bunch of companies that want to do this, and it's like, okay, this is clearly what's happening. You'd have some of the ones that are like, I'm out on that. And even if you look at it from a greed standpoint, they'd be like, well, look, we'll let our people out way sooner and we'll have a lot to contend with, but that's our head start. That's our head start in rebuilding the world. No,
it's not viable because you're talking about a time period that is so long that you are bound to have a split in perspective of what should be done. The idea that you could have one coherent or consistent, like leadership.
narrative.
Yep. And the narrative behind that leadership, that's the silliest part, right? That's the part that makes the least amount of sense, because when it comes down to how many people are really left, each person is going to think that this is their opportunity to seize that power. And so then it'll go from big picture ideological to individual tyrant style, especially when you're talking about a small population inside of the vault. That's even easier to think that you would have control, right? And so the overarching idea of let's solve this as our corporation, our business is going to solve this, that's the part that is the craziest, because who's going to toe the line 300 years down the road? The idea of that being a real solution is nuts.
And
To
that's
me.
and they do talk about that in the show. Like every time Lucy goes and meets new people, and they're like, they take one look at her, and they're like, "Oh, you're one of those vault dwellers." It's like you're one of the crazy people.
What do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
I think that if you're gonna have, I always kind of balk at the idea that like automatically we paint every large corporation as an evil entity. What I've come to me to look at is, if we're going to have this sort of scenario play out, like the show presents it, I would see like the United States government would say, look, we will give all you guys a shit ton of money. We're going to have so much money. We're going to basically build these vaults for you, but we will install automatic time locks on all your vaults. You can't open them until this year. Take this deal. And now, so you need one thing that can bribe all the others to get what they want, to make everyone like, oh yeah, we'll go along with this. I'll have all this stuff. I'm gonna have all the hookers I want before the world ends. I'm gonna have all these other things, all these glorious stuff, and then our vault's gonna be basically made for us. And hey, when it unlocks in 200 years, I'm not gonna be around, or whatever, maybe cryo frozen or something. But
I'm gonna get my own vault, blackjack, and hookers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's
You get a deal cut, so you can, the corruption comes inherent from this sort of bribery, not of independent, like free market. That's the thing. The idea is like the free market has gone awry, and all these people are going. Their solution then is wipe out the world because insane greed.
doesn't that not make sense though? And maybe I'm missing what you're saying, or the idea as a whole. But if the point here is for the individual or the corporation to get rich, right? If that's their objective, then what in the world, like, why would you nuke the United States? What are you going to do with your riches if you're hidden down inside of a vault for 300 years?
The
What does the
riches could
wealth
be
matter?
in other forms, like we say, like your own thing with hookers, like Tony said. You have, your loud control here, and your own like cryo chamber or something. We'll make clones of you, that you whatever you want, the things you want. You'll have so guaranteeing you some sort of control. Maybe we give you more vaults, and you can pick and choose your own people. So maybe it becomes a thing of like saving certain people. Maybe you have, I'm gonna have a vault of all the people that I love, and they're gonna be separate from these other tests and weirdos and stuff like that. And we're gonna guarantee you that, whatever it is, it doesn't have to necessarily be monetary, but it could also be in precious things that, when you are rebuilding a world, will then again have value. could be you get more ammo supply than whatever, whoever else.
Gotcha.
Something.
Hmm.
And that's what they did. Every vault was an experiment, and they all were chosen by the people, the companies who bought the vaults.
But that's
Do you
where I think
experiment
this
on
is
your
a
own people then?
caricature.
They
You are.
experimented on anybody.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
This is where it's a caricature, and where you have to just laugh at it as it's a video game and it's a show, and because the logic falls off.
It does.
Because it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter who the successful vault is. The corporation, the companies, they're not going to exist.
Well,
so like the idea
people
of
are though. Those people
no,
are, because they're being cryo frozen. Or in the case of Mr. House, he becomes a computer.
right? But it's not about money. This is about power.
Mhm.
Like that's the thing. And this is where all of it falls flat. Is power is only power when there's somebody to, reside over, to
Subjugate.
subjugate.
Well,
Sure, that's a
Your
great word.
vault. Your vault that you said. It's so perfect because it's a smaller group. So you have
No,
more.
It's easier, but it's not. They already reside over. They already have power over that many people, and way, 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 way more. Like that's the thing about this to me.
Yeah, sure. Well, but if it's like, well, if you're, yeah, well, I guess that brings in the question then, is the nuclear war imminent then really anyways, if you have to go ahead and do it yourself? Maybe it's not so imminent. Okay.
I don't know.
What do we make of the argument between the ghoul and his wife? So the idea that she is doing whatever it takes to protect and set up her husband, her daughter, the family. We're whatever life we can give her yet that is not being annihilated by a nuclear blast. That is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do whatever it takes for that. And he's like starting to look at things, it's the more like, well, you have to be able to live with yourself. What makes life worth living? I don't know.
See, that's a tough question. If anybody watching this hasn't seen the full series, you're gonna assume that his wife is good, that his wife is moral. That
Well, if you're
she's
watching this and
working
you haven't
hard.
seen the full series, get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. But what's funny is that his wife is a monster. Like his wife is a monster because she knows what they're all doing. She knows what Vault-Tec's doing. She knows what the purpose of these vaults are. And she even admits, she goes, well, what if we can guarantee the bombs will drop by dropping them ourselves? So
She's not a monster. I will contest that.
Okay.
Unless you want to say that she is made into a monster by the situation, I think she is justifying her actions. I don't think that she necessarily wants to bring this about, right? I think that she has. Maybe I'm wrong. Now that I'm thinking out loud, I'm trying to remember the conversation, because it is really shocking in the show when she brings it up. But up until this point, up until you're saying she's a monster, I was always just thinking that she was just doing all of this to justify her own family's well-being. But then you wouldn't.
That's what it
need
is.
to.
It's led up to that. You believe through a majority of the show that her work with Vault-Tec is she's doing everything in her power to secure a vault for her and her family to provide the best outcome, and she's working so hard to do that, right? Which is why she's angry at Cooper for when Cooper's like, well, we should just move it out to the hills and live like farmers or whatever, and you can raise chickens. And she's like, I'm not raising any chickens, I'm working hard at Vault-Tec. And it's not until like the final episode that you're like, holy shit, not only is she aware, but it's gone beyond I'm trying to secure the right to my vote. So is she an immoral person, or was she turned immoral by the situation she was in? Right. It's a complete parallel to the wasteland at the end. Right. This idea that the situation that these people are put in that's what's making them immoral. Right. Is Lucy going to become immoral because of the pressures of the wasteland, which is this immoral place that her Good Samaritan ideologies will be shattered, right? And that she'll become a different person. But the difference is we saw Lucy from beginning to end and it got full transparency to her story. We only saw um, Cooper's wife through Cooper's eyes. So we never saw what she was doing behind the scenes until the very last episode where he gets to listen into that conversation. So it's like, okay, well now was she always like that? Or
Mm,
and we just never saw it because she was hiding it from Cooper,
okay.
or is this a situation that's changed or something like that? So I tend to believe that she always knew what was going on in Vault Tech, and this was the idea because she seemed so confident in the conversation around, well, what if we could guarantee that the bombs would drop, right? It's like, okay, so you knew this for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're, yeah.
but if you're put in the situation where you believe the bombs are going to drop and you want to secure a future for your daughter, and is she the one saying, look, if she's saying, look, if the bombs don't drop, we're going to do it, or is she relaying that message, like that is the plan here and I can't do anything about it? So is she relaying that, or is she, this is my idea and this is what I want to happen?
Well,
Because what
now
is that? Because
now
we
we're
don't
getting
have
into the
any
morality by
implication that,
proxy, right? Are you guilty by association?
well, yeah, but that to me would be her plight. If you're going to empathize with her somehow, it's like if you're trying to, if you are trying to work at a company that you don't like what they do, it's like, well, you can either quit and they're going to do the things they're going to do anyways, or maybe I be there, I attempt to do something else. If I can make a difference, if I can't, I'm at least guaranteed whatever it is, the benefits I get or the retirement plan or whatever. And so it'd be this kind of situation here. It's like, well, they're going to do this without me. And then I don't get a guaranteed spot. So at least I've been here, I've made connections, I have this guarantee, and I will do whatever to protect my family, because it's going to happen whether or not I'm involved or not.
I think in that situation, you have to look at not only can you live with that decision, but can you live with yourself making that decision? Um, because if you are that type of person, right, if you have a moral compass, if you have a code of ethics that you yourself as an individual follow, and you're put in that position, and you say, well, damned if I do, damned if I don't, but hey, at least I get a spot at the table, despite the genocide. It's like, do you even want a spot at the table at that point?
Mhm.
Like,
I mean,
the,
that's a really honest question. Yeah.
And
it's
that's why I like it. This can be applied to all kinds of things way less serious. Oh, I hate Microsoft, but if like if I like their having their Xbox and using Office, so that makes my life easier. Let's do that. Like super simple things,
Mm-hmm.
what take your pick of whatever it may be. Um, that to me is
I
the philosophy.
I think whenever it comes to stuff like this, I always lean back on the idea like, well, if you could like live in a vault, or if you could, survive, like what would you do? It'd be like, I'd want to, fucking die. Like that's what I'd want to do. Like I don't want to live through the nuclear holocaust. Even in reality, if Russia finally was like, if Putin just wakes up one day and he's got his bigger stick up his ass than usual and decides, you know what, I'm just gonna be that dude that decides to like damn the whole world. I hope I die because I really
Full
don't want to
send.
live after that.
Uh, yeah. There's a lot of validity to that. Like, how desperate is your desire to live, right? Because Tony, what you're saying is, I'm okay with it being the end, right? People that aren't necessarily okay with it being the end. There's a lot behind that, you know, a lot behind why they wouldn't be okay with that. I think a lot of it, people that cling to life really desperately like that, feel like they haven't fulfilled enough, they haven't accomplished enough, they haven't seen or done enough. That's the interesting thing to me, anyways, is like, why do you want to just continue to exist? Because that's all you're really doing.
But that's why you bring the child into this, because you might take your life individually and weigh
Mhm,
it and be like, look, I don't want
mhm,
to scrap for everything and end up eating people and,
mhm.
like
Yeah, I
killing
want my
children
child to do
myself.
that instead.
Well, but that's true. But it's like, but y- a lot of people can find some kind of life in pretty horrible circumstances.
Mhm.
And when your child hasn't even had a chance to live, as long as, like, I don't know, that to me is what makes this conversation, at least not so super black and white between these two characters.
I
Is
get
like,
that. We're all young dads. Well, I look way older than all of you guys, but young dads nonetheless, right?
talking about.
Um, the thing about it is, yeah, you want your kid to continue living, right? You want that. You want to give them the best shot at life, or do you want to give them the best shot at a good life? And
Yeah,
if that good life is not something that can exist, then why do it? Now, if everybody says that, well, then you watch us go extinct, right? Because then you just
right.
stop having kids
Yeah.
and you have a problem. But when faced with, an apocalyptic setting like this, yeah, um, it'd be a really tough choice.
But that's what some people are doing. Like, I can't bring a kid into the world now because I don't think the world's going to exist in 20 years. It's going to be uninhabitable, whatever, and that kind of thing. Well, one, you don't know that.
Right.
And two, most people that have ever existed in the history of the earth by today's standards did not have a good life. Yet they lived, maybe did something fulfilling, accomplished something, and then worked towards creating a better world that for their kids then. Like, so if it's a real fatalist kind of mentality, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be real bleak and tough out there. That's just it. It's a giving up kind of attitude. And there's all kinds of things that could happen today that could put us in severe, difficult constraints that you probably need to push through versus giving up. I was just thinking about it the other day because there was all this solar flare stuff going up, and they talked about how and I don't know, it's been like over 100 years or whatever. There was a really bad solar flare, and at that point, it took out all the um, lines for
Telecommunications.
yeah, but it was at the time it was just what's it called? Dot 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 space dot dot Morse
Oh,
code,
Morse
the
code.
telegraph.
Hmm.
It's dot line. So at that point, that's all to go. Well, now apparently there is one electrical grid in the entirety of the world that has any sort of shielding or protection from a severe solar flare kind of event. And so I was just thinking, because Ashley was going to town with the kids. I'm like, if that kind of thing were to happen and shut everything down, just wipe everything out, I can't communicate with her. She is, because we're all used to automobiles, she is miles away. The car is not starting. She can't get it started. Everybody else, no one else can as well, or nor has any means of communication. I will have to do my best to hopefully know where she is to get a vehicle started and go find her. Like, just the little thing. If people didn't have power, you have no water. Like our well, we have our own well out here, but it's electrically pumped up hundreds of feet through the ground. So you better get a new water source. Like, and you can't get it's talking about how you can't just fix this. Then you fry your power grid and you have to order the parts for the new stuff. And everybody's going to be doing it. You're going to be out of power for months to a year. Millions of people will die because a solar flare wiped out the power grid in some place on the planet. And like, we're just so dependent on all that. Should I just give up because it's going to be tough? Or do I do my best to make it?
You're comparing a blackout to total nuclear annihilation.
I was gonna say,
It's a big leap, dude.
But I'm saying that a blackout that lasts a year will kill millions of people.
But you're
That's
also
what I'm saying.
talking. You're also talking about the hypothetical of what could happen versus a situation where it just is, right? Like, that's part of the differences. Are you in a situation where it's actually just legitimately happening?
Imminent.
Right. Or are you talking about this hypothetical potential of a solar flare and what should you do? People that talk about today of like, I don't want to have kids because of what it could be like or what it could happen. I'm sorry, but to break it down, you're trying to find an excuse to not have kids. And you don't need an excuse not to have kids. That's the beauty of it. Please don't fucking have kids if you don't want to. That's the worst. Like, you don't need it. But, when you're talking about should we raise somebody in, like, is it responsible to raise a kid in this type of environment sort of thing? I think that's legitimately a different type of conversation to have. Because there's also like a situation of necessity, right? Like, sometimes people have children out of a form of necessity because they had to continue. They needed more hands. They needed more people. They needed more help, right? It's not always such a selfless act of, I just want to bring a loving child into this amazing world. Unfortunately, it's not that romantic, when you're in
without contraceptives.
Right. Accidents. Yeah. But even still, like, it's not about that. But when you are talking about a child that you already have, right? A child that you already have, the bomb is dropping. It is happening, right? It's not a question of maybe or not, and you've got that kid. Do you want to huddle down into a vault and hope things go okay, or do you just enjoy those last few minutes kind of thing? Like, that's the question to me. The question about, all the other stuff of should we have kids in this terrible world? It's not that terrible, but should we? That's not a question. Yes, that's a must, right? Otherwise you cease to exist. And that's not a selfish thing. Anyways, but that's a different situation. I don't know that I would want to. I don't know that it's worth putting my son through that potential.
Can live 80 years in the Matrix. That's what the vaults are to me. It's like you're in the Matrix. It's like, and when you don't know any better, you don't know what the real world is, then it is your world. And so you raise a kid in this, and like, look, they get Jello, they get cake, they play games, like, this is all good. It's only the people that lived much of their life the other way that understands there's more to this. There's something else. We don't have to live this way particular, but at least in the vault we're shown here, things are looking pretty nice.
I'm going to go on pause real quick.
Sure.
There was a vault where they actually plugged all the inhabitants into a virtual reality. I'm trying to remember which one it was.
Oh, okay.
And then the guy who oversaw it just ended up murdering them and then reintroducing them back, but wiping their memory so they don't remember being killed.
Oh, really? That's in one of the games?
Yeah, it's in Fallout 3.
Oh, that's crazy. Nice. I like it. Well, do you have any? I know we got to wrap this up pretty soon, anyways. Do you have any other thoughts on this or closing final thoughts on
Um,
the show?
I really enjoyed the show. It's a great watch. The cinematography, the writing, the acting. Everyone was on board and they were all really excited about it, and it really shows through in that show. I'm really excited for season two. I hope this goes for a few seasons. I really hope they have a good story. I hope it ends like right when you want it to. It doesn't do like drag on and kind of become gross, but there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of meat on this bone. They really did a good job developing those characters. Lucy's arc is phenomenal. Maximus does a really good job at playing a little bit of the comic relief while also still kind of growing himself into
Yeah.
caring about somebody else other than himself. And you see that towards the end. I hope Cooper comes back and I kind of want Cooper to change. Like I kind of want Cooper to become less of a dick, but at the same
I
time,
think he already has a little bit. I think he already
he
has.
a little bit, a little, because he starts to see like how much Lucy didn't actually know, like how she
Yeah.
is just a pawn in this whole thing, and that she's
Yeah.
just she was just given a really bad hand to play. So
I think he likes her though too.
I think he does too. I think
I think
likes
he
her.
likes how resilient she is, and she's subverting his expectations pretty
Mhm.
significantly.
Yeah, I think dog meat is going to have a bigger. I hope he has more role to
Okay.
play in season two. I love the fact that they just had him at the end of season one, and we're like, "Yep, dog meat's still here, like he always is." Um, and I hope they bring back some of the other like. I really hope they bring the Institute into it. I think the Institute would be really fun to have. Get synths and like other
Yeah.
aspects of it. I think that'd be a
Mhm.
really cool play to do. But this seems to be kind of playing more towards the New Vegas type stuff. So we'll probably get the Legion or the Roman Legion or whatever they are. We'll definitely see them. We're gonna get a lot more NCR, a lot more of the Brotherhood of Steel.
Mhm.
Which is funny because like Mike, I was like, I'm gonna join the Brotherhood of Steel because I want the power armor. And then when you really start to realize who they are as people, you're like, oh, you're crazed fanatics. you're you're technocratic fanatics is essentially what you are. um so I think
Yeah. Ashley
there's
was
just a lot to play.
sure. Yeah, Ashley was just explaining to me today how excited she was to take the power armor from the Brotherhood of Steel, because to convince them that you're gonna be part of their cause, fully knowing full well she's just gonna kill them all with it.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
no, there's a lot of great fun characters in this too that we didn't really talk about. And that's fine. It's the woman that was pregnant with the kind of dorky husband, and she like co-ops a new one, the former gatekeeper. That was a whole
Yeah.
weird,
So
funny
weird. It was such
story.
a weird little whatever that was.
Yeah, but
I'm trying to
Mike,
figure out who she was in Vault Tech because I don't think I saw
mm,
her in Vault Tech in the past.
Which one?
no,
The blonde girl, the
I
one
don't
that
think
gets stabbed.
she's
yeah,
too young.
She's
I don't
from
think so.
Vault 31 though, or is she from Vault
right.
32?
She is from 31, I think. Yeah,
That's a good point.
so she's related, anyways, or something.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if she's from 31 or 32. She's not from 33. She came in, but I don't remember which one.
Mike, how about you? Any final thoughts on any of the philosophical conversations or the show in general?
I mean, philosophically, yeah, I feel if we're talking final thoughts, if we're wrapping it up, no. There's too much to go through, in my opinion, there. I will say that I think we needed, or it deserves, more conversation around Lucy's brother.
Yeah.
Just because, like, do you question, do you think he becomes the next Hank? Or does he take on more of the Lucy role? You know what I mean? Because they suggest that the brain guy, I can't remember his name right now,
Yeah.
Bert, right? Was it Bert? Anyways,
Yeah.
wants him to, like, sleep in your dad's cryo chamber, take your dad's kind of
Right.
place type of thing. And I could see him wanting that, right? Because if he learns enough about this, he could learn about the source of power that it is, and he is obviously the opposite of that. They talk about his lack of enthusiasm everywhere. You see that kind of thing consistent with a lot of leader type A personalities, right? Menial work is not something that they are attracted to. Solving problems, leadership, that kind of thing is, but then that is contradictory to his physical stature, right? Where you don't see him as a leader type right off the bat. In fact, that actor's from Ender's Game, the Ender's Game movie, and it was always so strange. I found him so strange in that movie. I never read the books. I don't know, but it's just this Weasley little scrawny off-putting person who's supposed to be some uber badass that it looks like literally everyone and their brother could accidentally knock over. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not real. So he doesn't have that stature that way. So this could be an opportunity for him to gain that type of leadership sort of thing. So that, I think, is going to be a really interesting point for the future of this. Also, the experiments, I think, were really cool. The human axolotl.
Human axolotl.
Yeah, that thing was super creepy, super
Gulper.
awesome. The gulper, but it's like a different gulper, right? It's not your stereotypical gulper. It is the experiment gulper. Like, all of that is really cool. I would have liked to seen more radiation effects. The show really didn't do much of that.
I think that's going to come in season 2. I think ghouls are going to play a little bit more in season 2, and they'll probably get into the glowing ones that actually are like hold up in the Nuka-Cola factory.
Yeah, but ghouls, I mean, I don't know. Ghouls are a thing, mutants are a thing, but they're not the interesting ones to me. Like, I like the irradiated creatures and things like that.
Yeah, more monsters.
Deathclaws.
Yeah, Deathclaws would be sweet.
I love how they tease that at the end of the last episode. The skull of the Deathclaw just sitting there.
Yeah.
I
think honestly that is probably testing how this show does. Like, from what I understand is that Amazon doesn't they seemed not particularly confident in this show. So I think it's like what you guys mentioned earlier, maybe about people being unfamiliar with the content, the executives at Amazon watching it and not understanding it, thinking it's going to be too crazy and it's not going to do well. So they drop it all at once, all the episodes, bam, it's out there. And then it blows up. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we can give them some more money, So I think it's probably a budgetary thing. We're not going to go crazy. Let's keep it more limited. And to a point, I'm okay with that. So we don't just like throw out monsters for fun. Like, let's have a place for them and make it meaningful.
I am glad they didn't. I thought it was going to be in the cave. I was like, are they going to throw a Deathclaw like this early in the show? And it wasn't.
The bear was sweet though. Like, I love that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. I think it's funny to John's point though. It's like, cool, I'm glad this got greenlit after the first season, but let's just throw more money at Rings of Power, which nobody liked.
Yeah.
Well, that's another story. That season 2 is dead on arrival. I think season 2 of this will be highly anticipated by most, and I'm excited for it. I hope that Bethesda, Obsidian, and Microsoft can do something not awful over there. They should make another Fallout game. Does seem like there's rumors of fast tracking something, building a different studio, something, because they caught them off guard as well. As like, oh, what? People still like Fallout? Wow.
People like good games, but Starfield was just 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So
10 out of 10.
Be interesting to see what happens in the Fallout franchise going forward. I guess if for the time being, you got the old games that have been up-res, look pretty good, and Fallout 76 people like too. So You can find Phil Spencer again in Nuke His Camp, which someone already did.
In Fallout, yep, they're nuking his camp in Fallout 76 continuously.
That's hilarious.
So, okay. Well, wanted to keep it relatively short. I know we got some time constraints, and like this is again these nice focused things. As chat grows or people jump in chat, they can make sure they can add questions and whatever. This won't be going to, again, podcast directories like our regular show. This is just on YouTube and Twitch and stuff on demand to live stream. There it is. Feel free to like it and share it and all that sort of thing. Our regular show, Popcast on the Rocks, we'll have a new episode tomorrow night. This week's going to be a busy week. Tomorrow night, we are doing about 8:30 again, Central Time. We're going to be talking about episodes 8 and 9 of Shogun from FX. So that's what we'll be discussing there. And then our weeks and stuff like that beforehand. And then this Friday, Andrea and I are going to try to do another one of these type of things, a short one. It's going to be, we're going to be going over, because the movie Furiosa is coming out that day. We're going to be talking about all of Anya Taylor-Joy's different like press week looks. She's been going through crazy different fashion changes, and I'm like, I liked one on X and now I get them, I'm bombarded with them. So we're gonna go through some of those. And so if you're into that sort of thing, you can tune in, guys. Yeah, and then I'm hopefully gonna see Furiosa, so then maybe talk about that soon too. So cool. I don't have any sort of wrap up for this and this new thing, so I'm just gonna.
I'll plug a couple of things for your listeners. If you do want to get into the Fallout universe, if you're curious about it, Fallout 4 is $20 on Steam. You can run it through Nexus mods, and you can mod the crap out of that game through Steam. It is available on Game Pass. You cannot mod on Game Pass. At least I haven't figured out a way to do it yet. You can get them on Game Pass. Also, if you're interested in playing the game, I suggest you go to Fudge Muppet on YouTube. He has some great builds and just walkthrough kind of stuff for Fallout 4 if you're new to the franchise, if you're new to that type of game. If you're not and you've played Skyrim, it's post-apocalyptic Skyrim. So there you go.
Nice.
I'll test this on this while we're here. Yeah, I'm gonna test. Let's see, screen share. Share tab audio. This. All right. Gotta get, while Mike's on here, we gotta say track mouse 34. So make sure you check this out. Mike, why don't you tell us about track mouse on Instagram and track mouse 34 on YouTube?
Yeah, it's essentially just me recording videos. It started off in-car videos. It started off really just, I wanted to have a place where I could review my footage and learn for myself a little bit. And the Instagram thing was started primarily just as a reason to share the build and have like a, kind of a photo book of my own progress and whatnot as we went through it. And now it's starting to grow, and we'll hopefully do some more fun stuff with the YouTube channel. I have some ideas for, doing like live recordings and whatnot at the track, which would be really cool. I was going to do that this weekend, and then I was just in a shit mood this weekend when I was at the track. It was not going well. And I was like, I don't know if this is what people would want, to just see a guy like skulking and being pissed off. So I didn't do it. I postponed it. So that right now it's just basically track videos. But if you're into that kind of thing, if you want to see a Miata going around a racetrack, hit it up. And then if you are into, seeing what we're doing about basically trying to attack Grid Life Club TR, which is a time attack class, follow it on Instagram.
Cool. All right. Maybe we need to, Tony, you and I, when Mike is racing sometime, if there's coverage of it, we'll have to like pull it up. We'll live cover it and commentate over.
Ooh, it's dangerous territory to have me start commentating on Mike.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, You'd
live
have
stream
novice
events.
me, you know, I'd be there and like, I don't know, asking the questions for the common folk. And
That
then
would
you're
be
going to have to be our expert, you know?
I would
So,
love to watch that after the fact. July 28th, that weekend, we're going to be out at Road America in Wisconsin. And that's a festival weekend where they will be live streaming it. So you could do it then.
July 28th.
I might be back up in Minnesota for that one, so I might
Whoa.
be able to have one. I won't be able to do vintage car racing. This is gonna be the first year in like 6 years I won't be able to do that one.
That's weird. I'm not doing that one either.
Mm.
Wow. All right.
What part of Wisconsin?
Elkhart Lake.
Yep, Elkhart Lake. It's what do I want to say? Our southwest of Milwaukee type of area.
It's near Fond du
think.
Lac, about an hour and a half from Green Bay, 2 hours from Green Bay, maybe.
Yeah, that's
I
much
might-
more
yeah.
accurate.
Hmm.
Middle of nowhere, Wisconsin.
Okay. Yeah.
Elkhart Lake. It's an adorable little town, and they have a racetrack.
Yep, that entire town is fueled by nitroglycerin and gasoline.
Yes, sir.
I think it'll be too close to my other trip, probably to make out there with the kids, but yeah,
Gotcha.
it's in the calendar, so I'll watch it.
All right.
Together, so
Sounds good.
okay, thanks guys, appreciate it. And if you have more ideas for topics for these kind of things, you want to just get on here and shoot the shit about something specific like this, whatever, you let me know and we'll make it happen. So otherwise, I appreciate very much for you guys being here, and see everybody next time.